Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Scene on Streaming. Oh, yeah, did you forget about that series? I did too. Scene on Streaming, where I talk about stuff I watched on streaming services. Done. Let's continue. So, Cobra Kai. Yeah, I don't know. I've talked about Cobra Kai for quite a while. I don't think I did reviews of series 5 or 4, maybe even 3. I'm not sure. I'd like to do a whole big recap of that whole show and do like a big series on it, like breaking down Better Call Saul, but I probably won't do that. But I want to talk about some of my frustrations with the sixth and final season of Cobra Kai, which is currently two-thirds of the way done. So it was announced earlier in this year, 2024, that Cobra Kai 6 was going to be split into 3 parts, 5 episodes each. A supersized season of 15 episodes compared to the usual 10 episodes of the past 5 seasons. And we would get the first drop, I don't know when it was now, August was it? July or August? It wasn't September because it's been, yeah, so November was when we got the second drop of 5 episodes. And the final 5 will come early in 2025, we're told. Now, it had been announced previously to that as well that it would be the final season, and they had an ending in mind, which is really exciting because sometimes these shows, they get popular, they get successful, people start to enjoy them, and then it outstays its welcome. And it really feels like this is kind of the critical point to end the show, I have to say. Not that it's been declining for me, but the timing is right. It's still really good, so this is probably where you should get kind of out the door. So the first 5 episodes, I enjoyed, but I just felt a bit of it's just the first 5 episodes, you know. We're so far away from even getting to be able to watch the kind of last episode, so I felt like it cut the legs out from underneath itself right at the get-go by having, you know, and we've had kind of seasons split into two. You know, Breaking Bad did that, Better Call Saul did that, I'm sure there's other examples as well. But and in those cases, it was like a year wait. Well, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. The final season of Better Call Saul, it was a few months, I think. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the length there. It was long enough for me to rewatch the first 5 seasons. I know that much. But yeah. Anyway, but you know, it's been done before. It's not like this is a revolutionary thing. But to do it into 3 parts, I'm not sure. And one of the writers of the show, creators, was answering questions on Twitter, and he was saying that, you know, I don't get what people's problems are with this. It's like you get a 3 hour movie every few months. You know, people wait years between Marvel movies and they're 2 hours, and now you're getting like 3 hours of stuff, you know, every few months. He said, yeah, but like the Marvel movies that are 2 hours, that, you know, maybe there's 3 years between the next one, in terms of maybe like, you know, the Spider-Man series or the Thor series, is that you're getting a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This season, this Cobra Kai 6 has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You give us the beginning, and then we have to wait 2 months. I mean, imagine going into a cinema, and after 45 minutes, they kind of pull the lights up and say, okay, we'll see you in March, you know, for the middle of the movie, right? And that's where I feel like it really has taken its legs out from under itself and also shot itself in the foot at the same time. With the second drop of 5 episodes, we reach this great cliffhanger, yes, that leads into the final 5 episodes, but again, it's like, here's the middle of the story. Now, lights up, wait for we don't know when. There's not even a time or a date, you know. And it just feels a bit too staggered for me in terms of its release strategy. I don't know why they've done this. They need. I'm assuming they haven't finished all the episodes yet, and that's why. And the writer said, like, well, you know, if we released it all in one go, you'd still be waiting. Cool. I would rather wait, you know, and also I would rather have the show released weekly. You know, that adds so much to the conversation and the, you know, the immediacy of enjoying a show like this. And while, yes, it's fun to just blast your way through a series, I feel like there's pressure to watch all of it, and then you're done with it, and then it's like, okay, cool. And then what's next? You know, like you're watching on Netflix, you know, the credits hit and you're like, wow, man, that really, do you want to watch this now in 2 seconds? You want 2 seconds? Oh, what is it? Like, okay, calm down a second. It's that kind of constantly, watch this next, watch this next, watch this next. And I like time, you know, and so that weekly release, while it can be like, oh, I want to see the next one now, it adds something, you know. Anyway, so the first 5 episodes I enjoyed. The drama around Tori was interesting. But I found myself, once we started watching, the second part, the episodes 6 through 10, I'd forgotten most of what happened in the first 5 episodes, because again, you take the break and it's like you kind of just push it away in your mind, and it's a third of a story. There's no retention there. At least for me, there wasn't. And it ended with the beginning of the Sekai Taikai, and then obviously part two is going to be the majority of that tournament. I will talk spoilers in this video, not major ones, but I will talk about some of the things that happen. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure that you have at this point if you're watching this video and have got this far into it. So the next 5 episodes we begin in the Sekai Taikai. There's just some things that I think feel a little bit unrealistic, even in a show where a kid got paralyzed and was kind of cured by good vibes from Johnny, and kind of taken into a concert and start tapping his feet. You take these leaps of logic at times with the show. Cobra Kai is a bit of a goofy show, a bit cheesy, kind of go along with it. Mostly grounded in reality, but not entirely. But little things like the fact that Tori and Robbie are a couple, and they go to Barcelona for the Sekai Taikai as Miyagi-Do, and then Cobra Kai are there, and then out walks Tori. Holy shit, no one knew. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like such a deceitful move on her part to have kept quiet about that. And it's like, did he not see her for months? Like, there's just something about I don't know. That felt a bit off to me. But then similarly, we have the sequence where she's talking about wanting to take a pause on their relationship because they're both fighting on separate teams, and he's like, well, it's a breakup then, and he got all mad about it. And I feel like we're supposed to be on his side, but I wasn't. I thought it's fair what she's saying, let's not hang out and do what young people do, when they're hanging out together alone and they're a couple. When we have this big tournament to come, let's stay on our separate rooms, and just kind of park the relationship for a second to focus on what the goals we want to achieve. And he just didn't seem to get that at all. And then that led to this drama where, he sees her at a bar with one of the other guys and instantly jumps to the conclusion that she's cheating or that she's now seeing someone else. And then this other girl who's kind of has a rivalry with Tori building up, she takes the opportunity to pounce on Robbie, and he's drinking and gets drunk, and she sleeps with him. And then the next morning, he stumbles out of her room, kind of like, oh God, I don't even know what happened. And we see Tori witness that. And the girl's just like, yeah, guess what I just did? I slept with your man. And it's like, okay, if that was a girl who stumbled out of that hotel room and there was a guy there who had slept with her while she was drunk, the conversation would be so much different. And again, one of the writers of the show was asked this question about the fact that Robbie was sexually abused. That was rape. If you're drinking, you can't consent. And he's like, no, it wasn't that at all. He just was drinking and made a bad decision because he was depressed. It's like, okay. Like, he literally stumbles out of the room, and I'm pretty sure he says, I don't even know what happened last night. Maybe I've misremembered that. But regardless, it's not a good look, and it was just a weird thing to do. Though my friend in work did say that he believes that in the third part of this series, it will be revealed that they didn't sleep together, and that the woman was just saying that to kind of make Tori jealous. I think that would change it somewhat for me. But then again, that's what happens when you save the third act of a story for fucking months. So this is one of those things where we don't have the full picture yet. So I'll try not to get too offended by that until we've seen the whole story. I some of my characters I like, and Hawk and Dimitri, they're kind of felt like forced tension, felt a little annoying at times, and I did like the bit when Hawk at one point was just like, shut the fuck up about MIT. That was funny. They placed their F-bombs really well. And there's two lines in the second block of season 6 that people pointed out are kind of great summaries of the entire show. The first is Amanda LaRusso. Is it Amanda? Daniel's wife. Where she just goes, fucking karate. It just sums up the whole show in 2 words. Fucking karate, man. And then Kim from Cobra Kai, she says something to the effect of, I've had enough of this off-the-mat nonsense. Which again summarizes the whole show. It's quite brilliant. And yeah, there's great moments. And fucking William Zabka, man, he's so fucking good as Johnny. Ralph is dependable as ever as Daniel. He's going through this whole kind of mystery about Miyagi, kind of that robbery, and then we learned that he was in the Sekai Taikai when he was younger, and then the match ended in death, which is a bit of foreshadowing there. And he kind of gets obsessed with that, and then we got, of course, Kreese back on the scene, and then towards the end, spoilers, Terry Silver shows up again, Danny boy, with the cigar and the hot tub, of course. Um, and then we get this incredible sequence, which is Daniel, who's kind of trying to reconfigure this image he has of Miyagi in his mind. It was like his father figure, his mentor. And he has this dream that he's in the Sekai Taikai with a young Miyagi. The actor they got to play him was fucking great. I don't know how well he could sustain a scene, or as some people are saying, maybe a spin-off show of a young Miyagi. But in that sequence, he was brilliant as a young Miyagi. That's a character you need to be very careful with, very precious with. And then Daniel in the dream is like, "What are you doing? Why are you fighting me?" And then he knocks down Daniel, and Daniel looks up, and his eyesight's all blurry, and like you're seeing from his point of view looking up, and there's blurring going on. The whole scene is kind of graded and kind of affected to look like an old movie with like scratches and the kind of grading and everything. And he looks up and he sees the young Miyagi standing over him, and then suddenly it morphs into Pat Morita. And obviously this is like deep fake technology. And he says something to him like, "Daniel-san, this is your problem," and then he punches him, and then he blacks out and wakes up in real life. Now, I have gone on the record heavily against stuff like this, especially in Alien Romulus, where they brought back the likeness of Ian Holm to play a character in that film that was from the same line of models of android as in the original Alien film with the character Ash. In Alien Romulus, he plays a character called Rook. And I believe that it was not necessary to the story, and it was only there to serve the audience, to make people go, "Oh, it's Ian Holm." For the characters that meant nothing. For the audience, it means something. And the way that it was done was terrible in terms of the realization of the effect. I thought was awful, and it was just an ugly thing, to look at, and just in concept and in execution, and it was just reanimating a corpse for the sake of. Just making people clap, really. And I thought that it was really ill-advised. Now, there are other ways of doing it, such as in The Mandalorian, where we have Mark Hamill actually portraying Luke Skywalker on the set, acting the scenes, and then he's replaced with a double whose face is deep-faked to look like a young Mark Hamill, and there's the AI voice. It's a mixed bag, but it's an interesting use of that technology, and when the actors are live, it's different. Now, in this case, Pat Morita died, I think, almost 2 decades ago now, and they did do a de-aging sequence in season 4 or 5, when Kreese was having the counseling session, and he sees Johnny sat before him in his mind, and then the camera pans around the back of Kreese, and suddenly it's Johnny from 1984. And it was done quickly enough that they kind of got away with it, but it's always when they talk, and the mouth looks really off. And that was the case here with Pat Morita. Once his mouth opened, a little you see in the seams around the edges a bit too much. And I feel like they could have held off on the line delivery to maybe another shot of Ralph or Daniel-san instead. But it was done so briefly. And it was done with him looking up, and his vision's a bit blurred anyway, and there's different grading, and and it's a dream, right? And they mostly nailed it, and it was done very briefly and very tastefully. And once that scene had finished, Connie went, "Oh, I bet you hated that," because she knows how I feel about the whole Ian Holm thing in Alien Romulus, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I really did. I thought it was really well done. I hope we don't see more of it. I think that you can really go to the well too often. But this was the perfect way to do that. I don't think we need to see it again, but we might. But yeah, it's when they talk, it just doesn't. It breaks the illusion, And there's been this Star Trek kind of short film that's come online, and it's a young William Shatner. And very wisely, this whole short film has no dialogue, and it's just looks and longing gazes. And you're much much more successful at kind of suspending disbelief that way. I still think you can tell, and if you sustain it for long enough, for me, it's just. But that's my experience of watching visual effects my whole life and being interested in it and seeing how it's done. Not that I'm an expert, but these things jump out at me. But the way that they brought Miyagi back to life for a second there, in a dream, worked because it wasn't serving the audience solely, it was serving Daniel as a character because that is what he would be dreaming about. Right? There's a reason to show that because that is what his character would naturally be thinking about and be dreaming about. It made sense for the character and for the story, and it served that purpose as well as being a fun little thing for us to be like, holy shit, Miyagi, That's why it worked. Then the Sekai Taikai devolves into madness at the end, and this huge brawl. And I thought some of the fight scenes, like some of the more climactic ones, were brilliant. And I've already forgotten the kid's name. Kwok, was it? Who's leading Cobra Kai now, and there's that whole plot with Kreese and the snake and everything, which is a bit hokey in the first part of the season. But he's leading Cobra Kai again, and you have this young kid who's like, shades of Chosen in Karate Kid Part 2 kind of, and also kind of Cheng in the 2010 Karate Kid. Just a really dislikable kind of villain character. And he's got the pretty boy hair, and he's a mean, nasty son of a bitch. But then they also kind of, I love how they also showed us that, like, it's not just Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai. There's other dojos at play here that are kind of impressive. Was it the Iron Dragons or the Iron Warriors? And they end up being kind of, kind of prominent figures. And they even get some character development there, which is kind of interesting, actually, and built that kind of side up. So there's even more than just Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do, which I liked because it would have been really weird if it was just those two dominating at this worldwide tournament. I'll say this again. The arena for the Sekai Taikai is fairly quaint, which I guess shows the limitations of a TV budget, because I just watched the 2010 Karate Kid film, which ends at just a random open kung fu tournament. And it's like huge. It's like so many extras, so many people. It feels grand. And the Sekai Taikai feels kind of closed in. It feels like in a warehouse somewhere, which is where it is, in Atlanta somewhere. So it's just like, I don't know. But it is what it is. You have to kind of go along with it, right? This prestigious worldwide tournament would be, wow, I thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier than this. That John Denver's full of shit, man. So that was a bit of a thing. And people criticize the episode where Miguel and Johnny fly back to the US because there might be a problem with Carmen. Is it Carmen? Miguel's mother, because she's pregnant. And then they fly back again, seemingly within the same day, which is borderline impossible. I guess they just had a break day and Sekai Taikai, and they came back the following day. People kind of dislike that because it was kind of, I guess, the story kind of froze there. But I really feel like that time with Miguel and Johnny, who really were the heart of the show at the very beginning, and I'm glad that they circled back around to that relationship. That moment on the plane, I think, was beautiful. Really, really great stuff. And yeah, I mean, I have the reservations about this season, but there's some really fucking great stuff. And Johnny is as funny as ever. Chosen is just such an amazing character. I'm so glad he has a prominent part in this season. He's so funny. I forget the actor's name now. Is it Yuji Okamoto? I think. He's so good, and it's so crazy to think about how much of just a twat he was in the second film, and he's just such a fun kind of protagonist in this show. He's just so good, and the whole thing with him and Kumiko, you can see where that's going a mile off. That he showed up at her door with some flowers, and some guy opened the door, and it's some wires have been crossed, but he just decided to throw it all away anyway. Like a typical man, biting his nose to spite his face. Is that the term? Got his ass in his hand. I don't know. He read too much into it and just kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. How many fucking analogies can I just force into this sentence? Not sentence, spiel, section of the video. I'll leave this all in for free. I'm sorry, I apologize. Anyway, even seeing Johnny mature as a leader with she has a strange name, the girl, Not Samantha, not Tori, the other one. It's like a weird Denver pops into my head, but it's not Denver. What is her name? Ah, it was in my head and it left. It just disappeared. And what was it? Was it? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, though. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. She was agonizing over the fact that she had, slipped the laxatives into the Kenny's drink. What is her name? Lee? It's not Lee, is it? No, it's a bit more unique than that. God damn it. Anyway, so he has this moment where he really helps her and stuff, and I like that there's still the push and pull between him and Daniel. I read criticisms of like, oh, we're going back to season one. No, like they were always going to be at each other's throats because it's just that natural antagonism between them, But they've come so far. And I really liked that it was Miguel who had to give them the come to Jesus meeting and be like, look, you guys need to realize what is at stake here, and you need to sort your shit out, you know. And they were both just like, yeah, fair enough, you're right. So I like that a lot, that they kind of conceded the fact that Miguel really knew what he was talking about there, and they were losing themselves in their kind of natural kind of tension that kind of arises, and the sparks that fly when they kind of are in each other's orbit, which is quite a lot when they're kind of co-senseis for Miyagi-Do. And there's a nice sequence where all the Miyagi-Do kids are kind of they're ramping up for kind of the final push in the tournament, and it feels like a goodbye from the actors too, and you can tell that they're actually getting quite emotional filming that sequence, to the point where the actress who plays Samantha LaRusso, I could tell that in one shot she was like almost crying, and in the next shot she was all happy and smiling. So I feel like the real emotions are coming out there from the actress, and this is the end of a long journey for all of those guys who kind of have enjoyed great success being in this show. And I really enjoy all the new characters. I think that's really what makes the show work, is the strength of the new characters and the likability of all the performers who portray them. I really enjoyed the thing with Chosen and Kim. That was really funny, and that hopefully we're gonna get a bit more of that down the line. But the ending, big cliffhanger, big holy shit, where they're gonna go from here. And apparently there's a behind the scenes thing, I haven't watched it, which kind of they talk about the tournament when it continues, and I'm like, what? Like, the tournament's going to continue? That seems as ill-advised as bringing back Ian Holm and Alien Romulus. I'm thinking, how is that going to... I don't know. Well, we'll see, right? I was foolishly holding out hope for the longest time that we'd get to see the final piece of the puzzle, that we would get to see Julie Pierce, Hilary Swank's character, in the next Karate Kid. I mean, the only other person who's been on screen with Pat Morita as Miyagi, as his student. Not a great film, but it's a part of the story, and apparently the writers consider it canon. But yeah, they've confirmed she will not be in Cobra Kai, which is a shame. But I just feel like even just a little nod, just a little, because they've done so well with that. Like in almost every conceivable way, they've worked in characters from the movies to great effect. They've enhanced characters that were great to begin with, and they've made characters that weren't that good to begin with really good. So they've worked wonders with it, and I hope that maybe Hilary Swank would kind of be the final kind of notch. It would really be a complete tapestry at that point. But that's one of those things that we'll have to live without. And I'm sure there's hardly anyone who'll be that bothered by it anyway. But that was just something I was kind of personally thought that'd be really cool to see. But we're gonna see how the show ends. I still feel like the show is gonna end with fucking a redeemed Kreese sat round the breakfast table with Johnny and Miguel and Robbie, and Kreese is gonna be holding the baby and Gucci cool. Like I just feel like they're gonna go too far with the redemption arcs, and Kreese is gonna be like getting this kind of fairy tale kind of kindly grandfather ending, and I don't feel like I would buy that. But they might be able to sell me on it. I don't know. Time will tell. They've got 5 episodes left. That's a good, 2.5 hours of storytelling right there. 3 hours maybe. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how it ends. But I do feel like the release strategy has been too staggered for me to keep fully invested in it, and I feel like that's a shame. But otherwise, big picture style, I've really really enjoyed it. And it'll be sad to see it go, but it'll be good to see it get an ending. And then, of course, next May, we have the Karate Kid Legacy with Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan, and kind of crossing those two universes. They've always said that they weren't canon to each other. Well, I guess they are now. And the Cobra Kai writers have said we're not involved with that. We're keeping an arm's length away from that. That's not us. Okay. So I'll be intrigued to see how where Daniel's story fits into that at all. If Cobra Kai, the events of it will even be mentioned, I don't know. And they've talked about how they'd like to see the stories live on in spin-offs and stuff, and so I'd be intrigued to see if that ever comes to fruition. I do think stories need endings, and in this world of kind of IP, these things tend to go on forever, and there's always like, how can we milk this even further? Like, how much money did we make from the Harry Potter movies? Billions. Okay, how much do we make from the studio tour every year? Like millions. Let's make more of it. Let's make a show of Harry Potter. Like, it's just like, when will it end? So with Cobra Kai, I don't know, but I'm glad that they're at least having the sense to kind of, and clarity of mind to say, this is where we need to kind of wrap things up at the right moments. And the kids aren't getting any younger, and the story has kind of taken place over a couple of years, and we've seen it told over 6-7 years at this point. So yeah, I'd like to think this won't be the last time we see some of these characters. I'm sure it won't be. In the case of Daniel, it definitely won't be. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see where it goes, but I wish I was more than intrigued. I wish I was bouncing off the fucking walls to see the last 5 episodes, but I'm not, because I have to wait for who knows how long. It's a bit of a bummer. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. As it is, that's some brief scattered thoughts in the same vein as this whole season, scattered across everything, of Cobra Kai 6. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Let me know if you've seen the show, what you think, and what you'd like to see happen in the end of the season, of the show itself. Because I kind of feel like there's not really a big goal. That's kind of or maybe also an issue, actually. I almost finished the video and I'm carrying on. But I don't feel like Kreese needs to be beat at this point. I don't feel like Silver needs to be beat at this point. So what are we really fighting towards? The only thing I'm really super invested in is, I guess, Johnny having a happy ending, maybe, and finding out more about this Miyagi mystery. I would assume that we'll get the happy ending with Chozen and Kumiko. Apart from that, I don't know. I guess you want to see Tori and Robbie kind of make it out, kind of as a couple, and potentially Miguel and Sam kind of to keep things going, and then Dimitri and Hawk to patch things up. I mean, I guess there's a lot of opportunities to have an ending which kind of ties up all those threads in a kind of happily ever after way, but I don't know. It feels like the kind of show that would end happily ever after, to be honest. It doesn't feel like the kind of story that suits itself to the kind of, the more dramatic, bittersweet finale, because, I mean, look at the ending of every Karate Kid film, it's always about the triumph. So I feel like that's probably the spirit in which we'll see all the characters end up. I just wonder if they're going to extend that to Kreese as well. Hopefully not Silver. That would be really weird. Again, around the breakfast table, you got like John Kreese, Terry Silver, feeding the baby and stuff. Who knows? It all remains to be seen. Now I will really say thank you for watching. Now I will really say I'll see you in the next one. And my sentence is leading into me finishing with something else, but there's nothing else to say.